The air crackles with tension, thick and electric, as the sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows over the rocky terrain of Zorah. The ground beneath the feet of the Philistine soldiers is hot and dry, dust swirling in the evening light clinging to their skin. They stand, armor glinting, swords drawn, eyes narrowed against the horizon. A war cry erupts, echoing off the jagged cliffs, a sound that reverberates through the bones of the earth. And then, there he appears, Samson. Tall, with hair flowing like a mane, he strides forward, a solitary figure against the backdrop of chaos. With each step, the ground seems to tremble. His heart beats like a war drum, echoing the fury of the approaching storm. The scent of sweat mingles with the acrid smoke of distant fires, and the taste of iron fills his mouth as he readies himself for the battle ahead. With a roar that shakes the heavens, he lunges forward, muscles coiling like a spring, and suddenly he is upon them. His fists, weapons of divine strength, strike like lightning. The first Philistine falls, his scream swallowed by the cacophony of war. Samson spins, his body a whirlwind, and within moments chaos reigns. The clash of steel rings sharp in the air, punctuated by the hollow thud of bodies collapsing to the ground. But amidst the turmoil, betrayal lurks, like a shadow creeping in the twilight. Delilah's face, beautiful yet treacherous, flashes in his mind. The memory of her soft voice, the way she whispered sweet nothings that dripped with deceit. It is a knife that cuts deeper than any sword. And in that moment, as he fights for his people, he feels the weight of his choices pressing down upon him, a burden heavier than the armor of his enemies. He fights with the ferocity of a lion, yet in the depths of his soul, a flicker of doubt begins to ignite. But to understand how we got here, in the land of Canaan, long before the roar of Philistine chariots echoed through the valleys, the sun rose over the hills of Zorah, casting a golden hue upon the rocky terrain. This was a world where the soil craved the gentle caress of rain, and the air carried the sweet scent of wildflowers, mingled with the sharp tang of the earth. It was a land of promise, yet it lay beneath the shadow of oppression. The Israelites, weary and downtrodden, toiled under the harsh rule of their Philistine overlords, whose laughter was a cruel reminder of their subjugation. Among them, in a humble dwelling, lived a woman named Manoah's wife. Her heart ached with longing, she was barren, and the empty cradle in the corner of her home echoed her sorrow. Each day, she would kneel upon the cool, earthen floor, her fingers brushing against the dirt as she whispered fervent prayers to the heavens, asking for a child. She was a woman of quiet strength, her spirit unyielding, her faith unwavering. Her husband Manoah was a man of resolve, his hands calloused from years of labor, yet his eyes held a glint of hope. They shared a dream, one that felt almost as distant as the stars twinkling above their heads. One fateful day, as the sun dipped low and the air grew thick with the scent of roasted lamb, a figure appeared before her. He was an angel of the Lord, radiant and imposing, his presence filling the room with a warmth that chased away the shadows. She gasped, her heart racing, and he spoke with a voice like thunder, yet tender as a summer breeze. "You shall conceive and bear a son. He will be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from birth, destined to begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines." The words hung in the air, thick with promise and awe. She could only nod, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks, shimmering like dew in the morning light. The angel's message ignited a fire within her, stirring a hope that had long lain dormant. She ran to Manoah, her heart pounding, her voice trembling with excitement as she recounted the divine encounter. "We will have a son," she proclaimed, and together they rejoiced, their laughter ringing out amidst the olive trees, a melody of hope in a world shrouded in despair. As the months passed, the promise took form within her, the weight of her belly a testament to the miracle unfolding. The scent of jasmine filled their home, mingling with the earthy aroma of bread baking in the oven. But with each passing day, the shadows loomed larger. The Philistines were relentless, their oppression crushing, their armies marching through the valleys like a dark storm cloud. They sought to quell any flicker of resistance, their swords glinting under the merciless sun, their laughter echoing through the hills. It was in this world of turmoil that Samson was born, a child whose life would be etched into the annals of history, a figure both revered and reviled. As his mother cradled him in her arms, the warmth of his tiny body against her chest brought with it a promise that one day he would rise, a champion for his people. She whispered ancient blessings over him, her voice soft and melodic, the words weaving a tapestry of dreams and destinies. From his earliest days, it was clear that Samson was no ordinary boy. His laughter filled the air like the sound of tinkling bells, and his eyes sparkled with mischief. As he grew, so did his strength. His muscles rippled like those of a lion, and the other children gazed at him in awe, their hearts pounding with admiration and envy. Yet beneath the surface, a tempest brewed within him. He was destined for greatness, but the weight of expectation bore down on his young shoulders. In the fields of Zorah, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Samson would often wander alone, seeking solace in the whispering winds. The gentle rustle of leaves filled his ears, a symphony of nature that cradled his thoughts. He watched the stars emerge one by one, their twinkling light beckoning him, whispering secrets of a world beyond his own. He felt the pull of destiny, yet he was still a boy at heart, yearning for freedom, for laughter, for the simple joys of life. But the world was unforgiving. As he grew into a young man, the Philistines tightened their grip. Their laughter grew more sinister, their raids more frequent. The people of Israel, weary from battle, looked to their young hero with hope, yet he felt the weight of their expectations pressing down upon him, a chain binding him to a fate he had not yet chosen. And then there was Delilah. She entered his life like a summer storm, a whirlwind of beauty and seduction. With hair that cascaded like a waterfall and eyes that sparkled like the stars, she captured his heart in a way that left him breathless. In her presence, the weight of the world seemed to dissipate, replaced by the intoxicating thrill of love. But love is a treacherous beast, and as their connection deepened, so too did the shadows that loomed over them. The Philistines sought her out, their whispers promising power and gold, in exchange for secrets that could unravel the very fabric of Samson's strength. In the depths of his heart, Samson felt the conflict brewing. Love and loyalty waged war within him, and as he stood on the precipice of destiny, the choices he made would ripple through time, echoing long after his final breath. The air grew thick with tension as the storm clouds gathered, foretelling the chaos that would soon follow. And so the stage was set. A world teetering on the brink of change, a young man filled with potential, and a legacy waiting to be forged. The scent of impending conflict mingled with the sweetness of hope, and the journey of Samson was about to begin. In the heart of Canaan, where the sun poured gold across the rolling hills and the fragrance of wild thyme drifted on the warm breeze, Samson grew. The once barren womb of his mother now resonated with the laughter of a child destined for greatness. As he played among the olive trees, his small hands grasping the rough bark, the whispers of his future danced in the air, mingling with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of shepherds tending their flocks. Here, amidst the humble beginnings, the seeds of his strength were sown, nurtured by a promise that hung like the sweet scent of pomegranates in the summer. As he transitioned from boyhood to manhood, the whispers turned into tales. Tales of a youth whose strength was like thunder, whose spirit burned brighter than the midday sun. The villagers, awestruck by his feats, spoke in hushed tones of the lion he tore apart with his bare hands, his roar echoing across the valleys. They marveled at how he lifted the heavy gates of Gaza, carrying them on his shoulders through the dusky streets, the sound of iron scraping against stone reverberating through the twilight air. Yet beneath that splendor lay an undercurrent of anxiety, a feeling that power could just as easily be a double-edged sword. In those early days, Samson was more than a warrior, he was a beacon of hope. The Israelites, weary from the oppression of the Philistines, saw in him a glimmer of freedom, a chance to reclaim their identity. The people gathered in the evenings, their voices rising in fervent prayer, asking for divine intervention, for a hero to rise from their midst. The air was thick with hope, yet laced with the bitterness of past defeats. They spoke of Samson's destiny, believing unequivocally that he was chosen by God, destined to lead them to victory, to restore their honor. His journeys often took him to the fringes of Philistine territory, where he would confront their soldiers, his spirit ablaze with righteous fury. The men of Israel cheered for him, their hearts swelling with pride as they followed him into battle, the dust swirling around their feet, the scent of sweat and resolve hanging heavily in the air. Each victory carved a deeper mark in the annals of their history, and every laugh shared around the evening fire transformed the weight of oppression into a fleeting memory. But the path of strength is not without its shadows. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, doubt began to creep into the hearts of the people. They wondered, was their hero invincible, or was he simply a man, flawed and susceptible to temptation? Whispers of his encounters with women began to stir, tales that flowed like wine at feasts, sweet yet intoxicating. His heart, it seemed, was a battleground as much as the fields where he fought. When he first laid eyes on the woman of Timnah, her beauty was as radiant as the morning sun breaking over the hills. The air hummed with a sense of inevitability, and the scent of jasmine wrapped around him like a lover's embrace. She was a Philistine, a foreigner, and yet he felt drawn to her, as if fate itself had woven their paths together. The people gasped when they heard of their union, their eyes wide with disbelief. How could the chosen one seek love among their oppressors? Their voices trembled with concern, a low murmur of dissent washing over the once celebratory gatherings. Samson, lost in the depths of passion, saw only her. He invited danger into his life, believing that love could conquer all. He danced with her under the stars, laughter mingling with the cool night air, and for a fleeting moment, the world outside faded into oblivion. Yet, even as joy enveloped him, the shadows of his choices loomed larger, each laugh echoing with the quiet, persistent reminder of his people's plight. The true turning point came in the unlikeliest of moments, a riddle posed to his wedding guests, a playful challenge that masked the brewing storm. As the guests pressed him for the answer, the tension crackled in the air, like the distant rumble of thunder before a storm. They turned to his bride, whispering secrets that would shatter the fragile peace. Betrayal, like a serpent, slithered into his life, striking at the heart of his strength. The scent of smoke and despair filled the air when he discovered her treachery, and in an explosive burst of rage, he unleashed his fury upon the Philistines, a whirlwind of vengeance and sorrow. The cries of the defeated echoed long into the night, a haunting lullaby that blended with the soft rustle of the wind, swirling through the trees like a restless spirit. Each battle, each victory, came at a price. His heart grew heavier, burdened by the weight of bloodshed and betrayal. The people of Israel, once jubilant in his triumphs, began to whisper doubts. They questioned the wisdom of a hero who was so easily swayed by his desires, who danced along the precipice of destruction. Yet amidst the chaos, the flames of his spirit burned brighter. He sought solace in the solitude of the hills, where the air was crisp and the stars sparkled like diamonds against the velvety canvas of night. Here, he wrestled not only with the Philistines, but with his own demons. Each breath was a reminder of the duality of his nature, strength interwoven with vulnerability. The cool breeze brushed against his skin, carrying away whispers of doubt, leaving only the resolve to forge ahead, to reclaim his purpose. With each passing day, the tension mounted. The Philistines, sensing their opportunity, plotted in the shadows. They would not rest until the source of their suffering was extinguished. Samson, in his moments of reflection, felt the weight of destiny pressing upon him. He was both hero and human, savior and sinner. The night air was thick with the scent of impending storm, and he knew that the battles ahead would not only test his strength but the very essence of who he was meant to be. As he stood on the precipice of his rise, the people looked to him with hope, a flickering flame in the darkness. They believed that he, with all his complexities, was capable of delivering them from their oppression. The horizon glimmered with promise, though heavy with the shadows of what was to come. For in the heart of every hero lies a tale of sacrifice, a journey laden with choices that could alter the course of history. And so, as the stars twinkled overhead, Samson took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever awaited him, the scent of the earth beneath his feet grounding him in the reality of his tumultuous existence. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the hills of Zorah. The air was thick with the scent of dust and the distant echoes of clashing steel. It was the eve of battle, a time when the weight of anticipation pressed down upon the weary hearts of the Israelites. The Philistines, a relentless force, gathered in their encampments, their torches flickering like stars snuffed out by the night. It was a crisis that had been brewing for years, but now it was poised to erupt, and Samson stood at the center, a figure of both hope and impending doom. On that fateful day, the sounds of the battlefield were deafening. The clash of swords and the cries of men filled the air, mingling with the acrid odor of smoke rising from burning fields. Samson had taken a vow, a sacred promise to God, to lead his people against their oppressors. In his heart, he felt the fire of destiny burning, yet it was a fire that could just as easily consume him. As he prepared for the fight, the weight of his choices bore down upon him like the oppressive heat of the summer sun. With each step, he felt the ground tremble beneath him, a reminder of the strength coursing through his veins. But strength alone could not shield him from the choices that would shape his fate. It was here, amid the chaos and clamor, that he recalled the seductive laughter of Delilah, her eyes like dark pools that drew him in. She had been both his solace and his undoing, a reminder of the dual nature of his existence. The Israelites needed a champion, and yet, in his heart, there lingered the knowledge that his greatest weakness lay in the very bonds he had forged. As the battle began in earnest, a wave of Philistine soldiers surged forward, their voices rising in a battle cry that pierced the air. The clash of shields echoed like thunder, and the ground shook with the force of their onslaught. Samson fought with a ferocity that astonished even his foes, hurling Philistines aside as if they were mere children. But every blow he struck was accompanied by a nagging doubt, a whisper in his mind that he could not shake. The eyes of the crowd bore witness to his strength, but they could not see the turmoil within. In a moment that would change everything, a Philistine warrior, fierce and determined, lunged at Samson with a sword that glinted in the sunlight. The blade found its mark, slicing through the air and embedding itself into Samson's side. A gasp escaped his lips, mingling with the roar of battle that surrounded him. Pain surged through him, sharp and unyielding, but it was not merely the physical wound that cut deep. It was the realization of his vulnerability, the fragility of the power he had taken for granted. Staggering back, he felt the warmth of his own blood seeping into the parched earth, a stark reminder of the human cost of war. The cries of his people reached him, desperate and filled with fear. With every heartbeat, he understood that this was not merely a battle against the Philistines, but a struggle against the very doubts that threatened to consume him. In that moment, surrounded by the chaos of war, he saw the faces of the Israelites, their hopes resting upon his shoulders, their lives intertwined with his choices. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson hue over the battlefield, Samson summoned all his strength. With a roar that echoed through the valley, he pushed through the pain, fighting not just for victory, but for redemption. He could hear the whispers of the past, the laughter of Delilah, the mistakes that had led him to this moment. Each strike he delivered sent shockwaves through the ranks of the Philistines, their confidence faltering as they witnessed the wrath of a man who had been chosen for greatness. But in the depths of his heart, there lingered a question that hung heavily in the air. Was he truly the hero they believed him to be? Or was he merely a man of flesh and blood, flawed and susceptible to the same temptations that had led him astray? The cries of his people, the sounds of battle, all melded into a cacophony that threatened to drown out the voice of reason. In the aftermath of the battle, the ground was strewn with the remnants of war. Fallen warriors, both Israelite and Philistine, lay intertwined in a grim tableau of blood and sacrifice. The air was thick with the stench of sweat and smoke, mingling with the coppery tang of spilled blood. It was a sight that would haunt the dreams of many, a stark reminder of the cost of conflict. Samson, bloodied but unbroken, stood amidst the wreckage, a solitary figure against the backdrop of a dying sun. He had fought valiantly, yet as he surveyed the devastation, a profound sorrow washed over him. Each life lost echoed in his heart, a reminder of the choices made in the heat of battle. The cries of the wounded filled the air, sharp and piercing, and he felt their pain as if it were his own. He had won the day, but at what cost? The weight of his decisions pressed down upon him, a burden he would carry long after the battle had ended. In the silence that followed, as the last embers of the day faded into darkness, he was left alone with his thoughts. The laughter of Delilah, once a sweet melody, now echoed with a haunting timbre. He had fought for love, for freedom, but the chains of betrayal were heavy. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, he realized that the greatest battle lay not on the fields of war, but within himself. In the quiet moments that followed, he understood that strength was not merely the absence of fear, but the courage to confront his own flaws. The legacy of his choices would ripple through time, shaping the lives of those who came after him. As the darkness enveloped the land, Samson knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning, a chance to seek redemption in the shadows of his past. And as the night deepened around him, he felt a flicker of hope, a light amidst the darkness, guiding him toward a path yet unwritten. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the rolling hills of Canaan, where the air was thick with the scent of dust and sweat. It was here, amidst the rocky terrain of Zorah, that the tide of fate would turn. The Philistines, ever watchful, gathered their forces, a murmur of steel and gruff voices echoing in the valley. They were strong, confident, and fueled by a relentless desire to crush the last flickers of Israelite resistance. But among them, there was an undercurrent of unease, for they had heard tales of the mighty Samson, the one who had single-handedly torn apart a lion and struck down 1,000 of their warriors with the jawbone of an ass. In the heart of the Israelite camp, the air was charged with tension. Samson sat apart, his long hair cascading over his shoulders, a testament to his Nazirite vow. The scent of burnt offerings lingered in the air, mingling with the heat of the day. He could feel the weight of expectation pressing down upon him, a burden as heavy as the iron shackles of slavery that had once bound his people. It was a time of reckoning, a moment when the choices he had made would come to define not just his fate, but the fate of all Israel. The ground trembled beneath the boots of the approaching Philistine army, their war cries rising like a tempest. Samson stood, heart-pounding, each beat echoing the cries of his ancestors, those who had suffered under the Philistine yoke. The cacophony of clashing steel and the shouts of men filled the air, a brutal symphony that would soon reach a crescendo. He stepped forward, the dust swirling around his feet, and as he did, a shiver of resolve coursed through him. This was not just a battle, this was his destiny. With a roar that pierced the din of war, Samson charged into the fray, the strength of the Lord surging through him like a wildfire. His fists flew, striking down foes with astonishing force. Each blow was a testament to his divine heritage, each defeated warrior a step closer to liberation. The sounds of battle, metal clashing, men shouting, and the cries of the wounded mingled with the thrum of his own heartbeat, creating a chaotic rhythm that propelled him forward. But amid the chaos, a shadow loomed. Delilah, the woman who had once captured his heart, was not far off. The memory of her laughter, a sweet, haunting melody, echoed in his mind, now tainted with betrayal. He had trusted her, confided in her, yet she had revealed his secrets to the enemy. The scent of her perfume still clung to the fabric of his dreams, a bittersweet reminder of love turned sour. In this moment of battle, as he swung his fists and hurled his enemies aside, he felt her presence like a ghost, a reminder of his vulnerabilities. As the skirmish wore on, the tide began to shift. The Philistines were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Samson fought with the ferocity of a wounded lion, but even the strongest spirit can falter. A spear grazed his side, a sharp pain that cut deeper than mere flesh. He stumbled, the world spinning around him, a blur of colors and sounds. The taste of iron filled his mouth, mingling with the dust of the earth, as he struggled to regain his footing. And then he saw her, Delilah, watching from the sidelines, her face a mixture of fear and something darker. She had betrayed him, yet there was a part of him that still ached for her. The battle raged on, but in that fleeting moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. The Philistines surged forward, emboldened by his faltering strength. They closed in, a wall of bodies and weapons, and he felt the ground shift beneath him, the weight of despair settling heavily on his shoulders. It was then that the realization struck him like a lightning bolt. This was not just about him. It was about his people, their cries mingling with his own. The blood of the innocent stained the ground, and he could not allow their suffering to be in vain. With a surge of determination, he pushed through the pain, channeling every ounce of his strength into one final act of defiance. He cried out to the Lord, a desperate plea that rose above the tumult of war. The air thickened with divine energy, a tangible force that enveloped him. And as he stood, surrounded by the enemy, he called upon the strength that had been bestowed upon him. The ground beneath him trembled and shook, and with a primal roar, he brought down the pillars of the temple of Dagon, a structure that had long symbolized Philistine dominance. The crash echoed through the valley, a cacophony of destruction that silenced the battlefield. In that cataclysmic moment, time seemed to stretch. The walls crumbled, and the earth opened up, swallowing both Philistines and Israelites alike. Dust and debris filled the air, a choking fog that blurred the line between friend and foe. And as the temple collapsed, Samson felt the weight of the world upon him, the weight of his choices, his failures, and his victories. He had sacrificed himself for a greater cause, for the liberation of his people, for the hope of a future unshackled by tyranny. The dust settled slowly, blanketing the remnants of the battle, and in its wake, silence fell. The cries of the wounded faded into whispers, and the air grew still, heavy with the aftermath of devastation. Amidst the rubble, Samson lay, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. In those final moments he whispered a prayer of redemption, of hope, and of love lost. And as darkness enveloped him, he knew that though his life had ended, his legacy would endure, a flickering flame in the hearts of the Israelites, a testament to the power of strength and sacrifice. The story of Samson would echo through the ages, a tale of love, betrayal, and the indomitable spirit of a people striving for freedom. The world had shifted, the battle had been decided. Silence reigned, and in that silence, a new beginning took root, quietly blossoming amidst the ruins. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the scorched earth of Zorah. The air, heavy with the scent of charred wood and blood, echoed with a silence thick enough to swallow whole the memories of the recent battles. Samson lay among the ruins, his body battered and broken, a once mighty force now reduced to a figure of tragic consequence. Around him, the remnants of conflict lingered like ghosts, whispering tales of both triumph and despair. In the weeks following the clash with the Philistines, the land bore the scars of war. Fields that had once flourished with golden grains now lay trampled, a patchwork of mud and ash. The cries of mourning filled the air, intermingling with the rustling of leaves and the distant cooing of doves, whose soft sounds offered a stark contrast to the harsh reality of loss. Families gathered to grieve, their faces drawn and weary, as they spoke in hushed tones about the loved ones they had lost. Sons, fathers, brothers, each life extinguished in the throes of a conflict that seemed never ending. Manoah and his wife walked through the remnants of their village, their hearts heavy with sorrow. Each step on the cracked earth felt like a reminder of their son's fate, of the promises made and the dreams now shattered. They paused at the threshold of their home, now a mere shell of its former self, the walls blackened and crumbling. The familiar scent of their hearth was replaced by an acrid tang, a bitter reminder of what had been. They had hoped for so much, for a deliverer, a hero. Instead, they were left with questions, unanswered and haunting. In the twilight hours, the villagers began to gather. The flickering light of torches cast flickering shadows on ancient stones, illuminating faces etched with grief and uncertainty. Together, they shared their stories, weaving a tapestry of loss that bound them in shared sorrow. Laughter felt foreign in this space, replaced instead by the weight of memories, of Samson's laughter, of his strength, and ultimately, of his betrayal. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, a communal reckoning of what it meant to lose a leader, a warrior, a son. As days turned into weeks, the Israelites sought to rebuild their lives amidst the ruins. They gathered what remained, salvaging wood and stone to patch up homes, their hands calloused and raw from labor. The air buzzed with the sounds of hammers striking nails, the soft whispers of women as they tended to the wounded, and the occasional sharp cry of a child playing in the dust. A stark reminder that life, despite its fragility, continued. Yet, deep down, Beneath the surface of daily toil, there lay an undercurrent of anger and resentment towards the Philistines, the ever-looming threat that had brought so much suffering. In the quiet moments, when the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Samson's mother would sit alone, her heart heavy with a mix of pride and pain. She often found herself recalling the day of his birth, when the angel had heralded his destiny. She remembered the sweetness of his laughter as a child and the ferocity with which he defended his people. She had believed so fervently in the divine purpose woven into his very being. But now, as shadows danced across the walls of their home, she grappled with the loss of her son to both the Philistines and his own flawed humanity. The elders of the village convened, their voices low and serious as they considered the way forward. They spoke of the need for unity, for strength in numbers against the looming threat of the Philistines. They debated whether to send emissaries to seek peace or vengeance. The air crackled with tension and uncertainty. Each suggestion was weighed against the heavy burden of loss, and with every passing day, the desire for retribution grew stronger among the people. The Philistines had taken so much from them. They could not allow such brutality to go unanswered. Meanwhile, Delilah, cloaked in shadows, wandered the streets of Zorah, her heart a tumultuous sea of regret and longing. The betrayal that had once seemed so clear now felt muddied by the weight of her own choices. She had loved Samson, truly, fiercely, but the allure of power and the promises whispered in her ear had led her down a path of destruction. Now she moved through the village like a specter, haunted by the memories of the man who had once held the strength of a lion, whose heart had been both her salvation and her curse. As the days turned to months, whispers of rebellion began to stir among the Israelites. They gathered in secret, their voices rising like a storm on the horizon, filled with a shared resolve to reclaim their dignity. They remembered the stories of their ancestors, of battles fought and won against impossible odds. And so, in the still of the night, they forged weapons from the remnants of their shattered lives, swords from the iron of plows, shields from the wood of their fallen homes. The air crackled with a sense of purpose, the scent of sweat and determination mingling, igniting a fire that had long been smothered under oppression. Yet, as they prepared for the struggle ahead, so too did they wrestle with the ghosts of their past. The shadow of Samson loomed large over their collective psyche, a reminder of both their strength and their vulnerability. His story resonated, a tale of a man torn between divine purpose and human frailty. They sought to honor his legacy, to channel his strength while acknowledging the lessons learned through his failures. The air seemed to hum with the weight of history, as if the very ground of Canaan whispered of the battles yet to come. And in the solitude of her heart, Delilah, too, reckoned with the man she had known. She longed for redemption, for a chance to rewrite the ending of their story. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, she resolved to seek out the remnants of his strength, to uncover the truth that lay buried beneath the rubble of betrayal. The world was filled with echoes of the past, and amidst the stillness, the promise of new beginnings lingered, sweet yet bittersweet, like the dawn that heralded both light and shadow. In the cool shadows of history, where the echoes of the past whisper among the stones, the tale of Samson has woven itself into the very fabric of human consciousness. His story, born in the rugged hills of Zorah, has transcended the boundaries of ancient Israel, marking its imprint on generations. Like a flickering flame in the dark, the narrative has been passed from one storyteller to another, each adding their own brushstrokes to the portrait of this enigmatic figure. A man of extraordinary strength, yet bound by profound weaknesses. With the passage of time, the contours of Samson's life became blurred, transformed into myth. No longer simply a judge of Israel, he emerged as a larger-than-life hero, a symbol of resistance against oppression. His legendary battles against the Philistines, once recounted in simple tones, morphed into grand epics, filled with vibrant imagery. The fields where he fought were no longer mere battlegrounds. They became sacred ground, where the clash of steel and the cries of warriors painted a vivid tapestry of valor and tragedy. In the centuries that followed, artists and poets seized upon his story. The Greek dramatist Euripides explored the depths of his despair, capturing the essence of a man caught in the throes of love and betrayal. The scent of burning incense filled the air as audiences gathered, captivated by the weight of his choices and the folly of his heart. Through their eyes, Samson became a tragic hero, a complex figure torn between divine purpose and human frailty. As the narrative traveled, it found its way into the pages of religious texts, where it was revered and dissected. The Book of Judges, with its raw and unfiltered account, served as a backdrop against which the moral complexities of Samson's life were debated. His encounters with Delilah, once a tale of seduction, transformed into a cautionary legend about the perils of desire and the treachery of trust. The air thickened with tension as sermons rang out, urging the faithful to heed the lessons embedded in his story, to recognize the duality of strength and vulnerability, to understand that even the mightiest can fall. But the legacy of Samson extends far beyond the pulpit and the stage. His story became a touchstone for resilience, a beacon of hope for those who felt oppressed. Throughout history, oppressed peoples have drawn strength from his feats. The echoes of his battles resonated in the hearts of the downtrodden, inspiring revolts and uprisings against tyranny. The rhythm of drums, the chants of the righteous, and the crackling fire of rebellion became entwined with the spirit of a man who defied the odds. In moments of despair, his figure loomed large, a reminder that strength can be found in the most unexpected places. The stories told around flickering campfires spoke not just of his might, but of his humanity. A man whose flaws rendered him relatable, whose struggles mirrored the challenges faced by countless others. The flickering light cast shadows of hope, illuminating the dark corners of despair, as the narrative of Samson became a wellspring of courage for generations seeking their own paths to liberation. Yet in the retelling, certain truths dimmed, swept away by the tide of embellishment and interpretation. What began as a straightforward narrative of divine strength and human folly became entwined with cultural motifs. The themes of love and betrayal twisted into archetypal patterns, shaping the very essence of storytelling itself. The legend of Samson, with its rich textures of passion and pain, influenced the tales of countless heroes, from the tragic figures of classical mythology to the brave souls of modern literature. As his legacy grew, so too did the complexities of his character. He became a paradox, both a hero and an anti-hero, a champion of the oppressed, yet a man whose personal desires led to catastrophic consequences. This duality sparked debates that echoed through time, inviting scholars and theologians to grapple with the nuances of morality. Each discourse added layers to his story, transforming it into a rich tapestry that reflected not only the struggles of the ancient Israelites, but also the perennial human condition. In art, he was immortalized in vivid paintings that captured the raw power of his battles, the anguish of his betrayals, and the poignancy of his final moments. The brushstrokes conveyed not just physical strength, but also the emotional weight of a man who bore the burden of his choices. Sculptors carved his likeness in marble, capturing the tension in his muscles, the fire in his eyes, and the sorrow etched on his brow. Each piece resonated with the palpable energy of his narrative, a testament to the enduring impact of his life. As the centuries unfolded, the story of Samson became a touchstone for discussions about leadership, sacrifice, and the cost of ambition. His legacy prompted reflections on the nature of heroism. Was he a hero in the truest sense, or merely a man caught in the throes of fate? The debates, carried through the ages, echoed in the halls of academia and around kitchen tables, where families recounted his tale, pondering its implications for their own lives. In the modern world, the lessons gleaned from Samson's story continue to resonate. His journey serves as a reminder of the fragility of strength and the complexity of human relationships. As we navigate our own challenges, love, betrayal, and the quest for identity, we find solace in the knowledge that even the strongest among us can falter. The legacy of Samson, then, is not merely a story of an ancient judge, but a mirror reflecting the eternal struggles of humanity. The warmth of his narrative cradles the hearts of those who listen, inviting us to explore our own strengths and weaknesses, to acknowledge our vulnerabilities while striving for greatness. And so, as the night deepens, let the echoes of Samson's tale wrap around you like a soft blanket, a reminder of the enduring power of storytelling, a thread that connects us all. binding the ancient to the modern, the hero to the flawed, and the divine to the human. As the darkness envelops the world, we find ourselves reflecting on the tale of Samson, a man whose life was a potent blend of strength and fragility. Here, in the quiet stillness of night, we contemplate the essence of human nature revealed in his story, a tapestry woven with ambition, love, power, and the haunting specter of failure.